Viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following content is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. What you are about to hear is based on official federal courtroom testimony regarding the Jennifer Lopez case, as reported by Inner City Press. This testimony includes graphic revelations that have shocked not only the legal world, but the entire entertainment industry. If you find this type of coverage valuable, please like this video and subscribe to our channel to stay informed as this story develops. Inside a federal courtroom packed with reporters and legal analysts, an unexpected figure emerged to take the witness stand. Ben Affleck. Not as a movie star, not as Jennifer Lopez's former husband, but as a key witness holding evidence that would append everything. As he stepped forward, the courtroom fell silent. He wasn't driven by bitterness or vengeance. He said he was compelled by what he had discovered. Evidence so serious, so undeniable, that it triggered an immediate response from federal prosecutors. Jennifer Lopez, seated beside her defense team, seemed unbothered until Ben took the oath. His voice was firm, clear. "I'm here because I can't stay silent anymore," he said. He spoke of a rekindled romance in 2021 that had given way to something darker. What began as suspicion-strange late-night calls, secretive behavior soon spiraled into a disturbing reality. Lopez would claim she was at work when her own team knew nothing about it. She would vanish for hours. One night, Ben found her in their office whispering during a video call. When questioned, she claimed it was just business. But Ben had seen the screen. It wasn't a meeting. It was live surveillance footage of someone's home. He began to pay closer attention. Her absences lined up with visits to places like Miami and the Cayman Islands. Eventually, while she was away, Ben searched their house. Behind a false panel in her closet, he found a hidden safe. He tried their anniversary date. It opened. Inside, burner phones, multiple passports with different names, but her photo, and a laptop. He copied the contents. What he found was chilling. There were spreadsheets showing the flow of millions through shell companies, fake contracts, fabricated invoices, and videos. Videos of meetings with known criminals. Instructions on how to misreport merchandise sales, conversations about manipulating tax filings. Lopez had been orchestrating a complex laundering scheme for years, using her business empire as a front. The courtroom watched as Ben testified with heartbreaking honesty. He had once loved her, but he couldn't ignore what he had uncovered. One folder on the laptop was labeled insurance. Inside, blackmail material on nearly everyone in her inner circle: photos, recordings, private documents, including on Ben himself. It was clear. This wasn't a few shady deals. It was an entire machine built on control, secrecy, and intimidation. Ben said he had considered remaining silent, but then a young production assistant disappeared after asking questions about financial discrepancies. Officially, she had resigned and moved abroad, but her name was in the files, and Jennifer had shown no reaction when it was mentioned. "I realized," Ben said, "I'd be complicit if I didn't act." He took the evidence to a federal prosecutor. That evidence was brought to court. Phones, backups, the laptop. Lopez's attorneys objected, but the judge allowed it. A video was played for the jury. Jennifer, in a luxury suite, calmly explaining how to structure payments to avoid suspicion. More videos followed. Threats to accountants. Meetings with underworld figures. Dismissive jokes about the IRS. Lopez stared straight ahead, visibly shaken. The prosecutor asked for an immediate arrest. The judge granted it. Bail revoked. As agents approached, Lopez finally spoke. "Ben, how could you?" He didn't look away. "This isn't about us," he said. "It's about the people you hurt." Lopez tried to resist. "No one will believe you," she whispered. "The truth's already out," he replied. The handcuffs clicked. The courtroom remained silent as she was led away. Ben left quietly. Reporters followed, but he said nothing. Outside, former colleagues and associates gathered, some in tears. A young assistant stepped forward. "For anyone out there being silenced, know this: we see you, and we believe you." Back inside, studio executives scrambled. Projects were paused. Stocks plummeted. Her business empire began to collapse, and videos of her arrest trended online. Fans were divided, some heartbroken, some outraged, but all shocked. The woman they had admired for decades now faced charges of racketeering, money laundering, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Legal analysts agreed. If convicted, Lopez could face decades behind bars. Her image, carefully curated, deeply admired, was shattered. The media replayed past interviews, scrutinized red carpet footage, reanalyzed her songs and speeches. Every detail now tinged with suspicion. Ben, for his part, didn't celebrate. "I don't regret testifying," he told a reporter quietly, "only that I didn't see it sooner." The entertainment industry had just witnessed the downfall of one of its brightest stars. But more than that, Tid had seen the power of silence break, finally and irrevocably. This isn't just the end of a celebrity, it's the beginning of a new era, where no amount of fame can shield the truth. And in this courtroom, the truth finally. In the days following the courtroom drama, the ripple effects spread far beyond Manhattan. News anchors debated the case with forensic analysts, ethicists, and legal scholars. What began as a financial investigation had now become a national conversation about accountability and the illusions of celebrity. It wasn't just Jennifer Lopez on trial, it was a system that enabled her alleged actions, protected her reputation, and suppressed anyone who dared speak out. Major brands that had once been proudly aligned with her image quickly distanced themselves. Endorsement deals were suspended or canceled. Ad campaigns were pulled from networks and social platforms. Streaming services removed her music and film content from recommendations and front pages. Quietly, many collaborators began issuing statements expressing shock and disappointment. Though insiders whispered that many of them had long suspected something was amiss, new witnesses emerged. Former assistants, accountants, dancers, even stylists. Each had a piece of the puzzle. Some described being instructed to manipulate receipts or destroy financial records. Others recalled feeling intimidated into silence after witnessing strange meetings or overhearing suspicious conversations. One longtime makeup artist described a conversation where Lopez had joked about hiding cash in product shipments. I thought she was being dramatic, the artist confessed, but now I wonder if it was all real. Meanwhile, federal investigators expanded their probe. Homes and offices connected to Lopez's companies were searched. Her offshore accounts were frozen. Authorities in at least 3 other countries began coordinating with the U.S. on potential international charges. The Department of Justice confirmed that a special task force had been assigned to investigate similar practices across the entertainment sector, with Lopez's case as a blueprint. Back at the courthouse, motions were filed daily. Her new legal team attempted to suppress evidence, citing privacy violations and chain of custody concerns. But the judge, unmoved by arguments rooted in procedural technicalities, maintained that the integrity of the evidence remained intact and admissible. Every delay tactic was met with firm resistance from prosecutors who now carried the momentum. Through it all, Ben Affleck maintained his silence. He refused media interviews and declined appearances, even as public opinion shifted in his favor. A close friend told reporters he didn't do this for attention. He did it because he couldn't live with the truth being buried. The public, once enchanted by the fairy tale of Ben Affleck, now watched a different kind of drama unfold, one rooted not in romance, but in reckoning. And with every new revelation, it became more clear. The fall of Jennifer Lopez was not just the story of a single individual. It was the unraveling of a myth decades in the making. Inside prison walls, Jennifer Lopez's world shrank from red carpets and global stages to concrete walls and routine check-ins. The woman who once orchestrated multi-million-dollar productions now followed orders in a fluorescent-lit cell block. Her legal team fought to appeal the judge's rulings, but momentum was against her. The sheer weight of evidence, videos, wire transfers, eyewitnesses built a fortress around the prosecution's case. In courtrooms around the country, legal ethics panels held emergency reviews. Law schools began incorporating the Lopez case into their criminal law curricula. The question wasn't just about guilt or innocence. It was about how someone so visible could operate so invisibly for so long. Former collaborators began turning state's evidence. One choreographer admitted to helping falsify contracts. A financial advisor confessed to setting up accounts under pseudonyms. Slowly, what had once been viewed as hearsay turned into a mosaic of guilt, laid piece by piece before the jury. Public trust fractured. Fans posted videos, burning merchandise, deleting music libraries, and sharing personal stories of how they once found strength in Lopez's rags-to-riches narrative. That narrative had been her shield, crafted with precision, maintained with PR machinery. But the shield was gone now, and in its place stood something raw, real, and unraveling. In one of the most emotional testimonies, a teenage dancer told the jury she had been forced to sign an NDA after witnessing a cash drop backstage during a tour. They said if I talked, I'd never dance again, she said through tears, and I believed them, because they controlled everything. Media outlets began producing full-length documentaries, tracing Jennifer's early rise and the cracks in her public image. They exposed shady business deals, court settlements, and mysterious firings that, in hindsight, painted a clearer picture. It wasn't a single misstep, it was a pattern. Through it all, Ben Affleck kept his distance from the headlines, but privately, sources confirmed he had offered to testify in upcoming related cases. One federal investigator commented, "Without Ben's evidence, we'd still be chasing shadows." He lit the match that burned down the illusion. Meanwhile, in the halls of power, new legislation was being drafted. Reforms on celebrity financial transparency, ethical representation, and witness protection were being discussed. Jennifer Lopez's case wasn't just news, it was now a national catalyst. The final act was approaching. The jury had heard the recordings, seen the videos, read the documents. Their verdict would come soon, but the world had already rendered its judgment. And no matter the sentence, The story of Jennifer Lopez, once a tale of unstoppable ambition, would now always carry an asterisk. As the trial neared its conclusion, the courtrooms were filled daily with spectators, journalists, and supporters. Of both sides, cameras were barred, but sketch artists captured every glance, every wince, every deflated sigh from the once commanding star at the defense table. Jennifer sat quietly, her attorneys doing most of the speaking, but her silence spoke volumes. She was no longer defending an image, she was now merely surviving a process she could no longer control. The jury's deliberations began under heavy media scrutiny. Speculation ran rampant. Outside the courthouse, people camped for hours, hoping to witness history. Across social media, threads dissected every detail, from courtroom transcripts, trying to predict the outcome. But those inside the legal system knew the truth. The evidence was overwhelming. Meanwhile, other powerful figures in the industry began to panic. Jennifer's arrest had exposed a fragile ecosystem built on silence, favors, and fear. Now the veil had been lifted. Investigative journalists dug deeper, uncovering additional ties between her business operations and other entertainers, executives, and offshore financial networks. Subpoenas were issued quietly. Grand juries were being assembled, one by one. More victims and witnesses stepped forward, emboldened by the unraveling of Lopez's empire. They described emotional manipulation, coercion, threats disguised as advice, and a machinery that made people complicit before they even realized what they had signed on for. "You didn't even know you were inside the system," one former accountant said, "until you tried to leave." The judge scheduled the sentencing hearing. Prosecutors asked for the maximum penalty, arguing that the scope and intentionality of Jennifer's crimes demanded an example be made. Defense lawyers pleaded for leniency, portraying her as a woman shaped by the ruthless demands of fame. But the court had seen enough. The truth, once obscured by spotlights and paparazzi flashes, now stood center stage. When sentencing day arrived, there was no glitz, no fans waving signs. Just a still courtroom and the sound of Jennifer's heels clicking against the floor. As she stood to hear her fate, the judge spoke at length about accountability, privilege, and betrayal. Then came the sentence: decades in federal prison, restitution of hundreds of millions, and forfeiture of assets linked to her fraudulent activities. Jennifer's face betrayed no emotion, but those who knew her said they had never seen her look smaller. Ben Affleck watched from a private room, away from the public eye. He had not returned to the witness box, but his role in the trial had never faded. For him, it wasn't about vengeance, it was about truth. And though the weight of that truth had cost him dearly, he understood the value of finally speaking it aloud. Outside, the press clamored for reactions. Commentators called it the fall of an empire. But for the survivors, it was something more. Proof that no amount of fame or fortune could forever shield someone from justice. The news spread around the world in minutes. Jennifer Lopez, once an untouchable icon of global entertainment, was now a convicted felon. Major news networks broke into programming with live updates. Social media feeds were flooded with reaction: shock, anger, betrayal, and, for many victims, a sense of long-delayed vindication. Streaming services pulled her catalog. Brands canceled endorsements. Stores took her products off shelves. It was a complete collapse, not just of her public persona, but of the empire she had meticulously built over decades. Every business deal she had once flaunted, every success story she had carefully curated, now came under scrutiny. Former collaborators scrambled to clear their names. Some released statements insisting they had no knowledge of illegal activity. Others issued apologies. A few openly admitted to having suspicions for years but claimed fear had kept them silent. Now silence was no longer safe. Inside prison, Jennifer struggled to adjust. Gone were the assistants, the makeup teams, the handlers. She was treated like any other inmate. Reports surfaced that she had tried to leverage her celebrity for privileges, but those attempts were quickly shut down. She had entered a world where fame held no currency. Back in the industry, the aftershocks of her conviction were only beginning to be felt. Agents, producers, and executives who had once stood beside her were now the subjects of subpoenas and federal inquiries. It wasn't just about one person, it was about a system of complicity, and Jennifer had been the face of it. In the weeks that followed, whistleblowers from other parts of the entertainment world began coming forward. Inspired by the Lopez case, they shared stories of exploitation, financial abuse, and manipulation. Legal hotlines saw a surge in calls. Advocacy groups for industry transparency and accountability gained thousands of new supporters. The Department of Justice announced a new task force focused on uncovering financial crimes in the entertainment industry. Politicians who had once taken donations from Lopez and her business partners now distanced themselves, returning contributions and issuing public condemnations. Ben Affleck remained largely out of the spotlight. He declined interviews and turned down offers to write books or appear in documentaries. This wasn't about making a movie, a source close to him said. This was about ending a nightmare. But for many, Ben's actions had already sparked a cultural shift. It showed that speaking up even when it meant risking everything could break the silence, could dismantle the illusion, could bring accountability to places that had long avoided it. Jennifer Lopez's fall had become a reckoning, and though the trial was over, its consequences were just beginning to ripple outward. Months after the trial, the entertainment industry was no longer the same. Studios had implemented sweeping internal reforms. New compliance officers, transparent financial systems, and anonymous reporting channels became standard. Talent agencies rewrote their contracts. Production companies reviewed every partnership with a new lens. The fallout from Jennifer Lopez's case had forced a reckoning no one could ignore. In Washington, hearings were held on financial abuse and corruption within celebrity-driven businesses. Lawmakers invoked the Lopez trial as a warning of what happens when systems protect power instead of truth. Regulatory bodies moved to enforce stricter oversight on entertainment finances. The ripple effect reached far beyond Hollywood. For Jennifer, the days were now defined by routine and reflection. There were no cameras, no stage lights. Her name, once a global brand, was now synonymous with betrayal. From a cell in federal prison, she watched the world move on without her. Watched others step into the spotlight she had once owned. Only now with caution, instead of awe. Ben Affleck, who had become a reluctant symbol of accountability, returned to his craft, quietly, purposefully. When asked years later why he came forward, he answered simply, because it was the truth, and someone had to say it. And so, the story that began with glamour, fame, and love ended with justice, silence broken, and the truth echoing far louder than any applause ever could. The world now knew that no amount of wealth or celebrity could shield someone forever, and in that knowing, something fundamental changed, not just in Hollywood, but in all places where silence once reigned. Justice, finally, had its moment.